Hi, this is Cheney Crab from Entheos.
This is Eric A.K. from Flotsam and Jetsam.
This is Rachel with Grave Shadow.
Hi, this is Mark from Dragon Force.
This is Adrian Callan from Seven Spires, and you are listening to The Great Metal Debate.
Gonna mix the magic potion, gonna make the whole world mine, gonna suck the life right out of you, gonna make my own self young. Stir the cauldron, oh, stir the cauldron, yeah, stir the cauldron, stir the cauldron.
Welcome back, listeners, to the Metal Debate Podcast, bringing you another amazing metal artist interview. I'm joined by Molly from U.S. stoner metal upstarts Omenbringer. Molly, thank you so much for coming on The Great Metal Debate.
Thank you so much, Robert.
We're recording this interview a few days prior to a big headlining show for Omenbringer at Exit Inn in Nashville, Tennessee. The band hails from Nashville. How cool is it to be headlining a show at what is, for my money, one of the most iconic, intimate venues in the city?
It is, to be, very honest, a dream come true, an actual dream come true. And I have, I'm actually a Nashville native. I was born and raised here. So I have seen many shows and many really amazing acts play Exit In. So to have the honor of a Friday night, a primo night slot, headlining that venue is absolutely just a dream come true.
Yeah, it's going to be a banger. I'm so looking forward to it. Now, coming from Western Kentucky, we're really familiar with a number of bands from Nashville, the different venues, and know some of the hardcore fans in the scene there. I'm curious, as someone who is familiar with that scene, what's your take on the current state of the heavy music scene there in Nashville? Do you think it's a good one? Do you think it's one that could use some work? What are your thoughts?
It's great. It's a town that is heavily saturated in music. So there's every kind of genre. There's a whole lot of competition, not meaning the bands are competing against each other. It's just you're competing against a whole lot of music happening all the time, all around you, and a whole lot of different genres. So, there's a pretty decent metal community down here, but one of the things that we were dead set on was changing that community because, a lot of metal shows are frankly just a bunch of dudes in T-shirts, and our shows are not like that at all. Our shows, we encourage everyone who comes to our shows to get dressed up and treat it like it's a big event, like it's basically like Halloween for every show. We have themes for the shows so we can kind of guide people on their outfit choices, and we have this arsenal of beautiful metal girls, of beautiful big titty goth girlfriends that come in droves to our show, and that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see more women at metal shows, more people of color, more queer people. I want it to feel very comfortable and like anybody could come to the show and that you don't have to be some person in the scene. Like, I just want people to feel like, oh yeah, it's a big open invitation to cool people who are spooky and like Halloween to come out to a heavy show.
Well, you somewhat jumped ahead to one of my later questions that I'll jump into now, which is I've seen live video of you all performing, and one thing that stood out to me in a very positive way was the explicit words of welcome for people in the LGBTQ community. If you would, speak to me the importance for the band to create an atmosphere of acceptance, especially in these recent days when, sadly, there seems to have been a backlash against and just genuine lack of kindness toward those folks.
Yeah, I think I can speak to a lot of metalheads here in this moment that maybe grew up, especially in the 80s or 90s when metal was kind of looked down upon in the horrible, satanic panic of that era, and just treating these people like they were somehow evil people doing evil deeds just because they like heavy, badass music, and I think a lot of people can relate to being bullied for being different. And people who are queer and trans and LGBTQA, these are people that have to live with that all the time. Just like it is brave for these people to go out into public expressing their true self. So we want to absolutely make them feel like they can come and be their true self at our show. And it is my experience with all of my metalhead friends that they are the nicest, most compassionate, sweetest people in the world. They're this group of people who is grossly misunderstood by the masses who think that we're all just these evil people, when it's really just we like evil music, like we like hard, heavy, scary music, and that's what makes us cool, and so I think that's what makes the metal community so cool, is that, that is 100% something that our fans get behind and that they love about us, is that we are trying to create this cool community of inclusion and a coven of kindness.
Coven of kindness. That's so beautiful. And I just echo and endorse everything you said, that one of the wonders of metal shows is going there, and whether you're old, young, gay, straight, black, white, like whatever, there is just a feeling of acceptance and brother and sisterhood there. You can be whoever you are, and you're just accepted. That's right.
Like we want to make people feel good at our shows and feel seen and feel like they can be their sparkly selves, their genuine selves, and that they can come with their long hair and their piercings and their makeup and whatever it is that they want to present, and just be fully that person and feel safe. And we always, we have played some smaller, crappier venues here and there. And I mean, we always tell our girls too, especially in our babies, and I call them babies, people that use they pronouns. So we always tell those people, hey, if you don't feel safe, walk into your car. Like, any of us would be happy to help you get there. Like, we just want to make, especially women and feminine people who identify as feminine, we want to make them feel comfortable and safe. And there's even people that we've had to ask to not come, hey, please don't come to our shows anymore because you make people uncomfortable. And it's I'm not afraid to say that to people. We're not afraid to, say go away if you're creeping on people. We very specifically have tailored our shows to be this community event of fun and safety and just heavy metal rocking.
That's a beautiful thing. I love everything you're saying. Now, you all recently played a show in Lexington, Kentucky. I think maybe it was your first show outside Nashville, with the guys in Stormtoker, who are awesome and hilarious. What was the reaction to that performance?
Well, first of all, I would just like to thank Stormtoker for inviting us up to that show. We played with them, Swamp Hawk, and Joe Grudge, and what an excellent lineup. I will say I'm a little disappointed in the boys in the bands and in the fans that were there that they did not have earplugs. And Mommy is telling you right now that if you love this heavy music, you better wear earplugs. They're not going to be able to hear it in 10 or 15 years. Because the decibel level at that club was literally insane. I mean, I had my earplugs shoved all the way in my ears and had to kind of go to the back of the venue in order to not feel in pain. Because all of us in our band, I mean, we take our hearing very seriously. And so we wear in-ears, we wear earplugs at all times, because that's our moneymaker, so just remember that, the local bands, anybody that's going to the shows, bring your ear protection, buy some fancy earplugs, because you're saving yourself, you're protecting something that you love, But I will just say, so, we have a whole shtick, a whole spiel. We're a whole performance. And so I was oh man, I hope that everybody outside of town, I hope everybody here in town, gets it, they get what we're doing. But I wasn't sure how it was going to be received, in a completely new place where pretty much nobody there had seen us. Let me tell you, it was well received. The room was packed for our show. I was going around, and kind of riling. I do that. I'm a good salesperson. I try to go around and let people know, hey, we're playing next. Are you ready to see us? And they're okay, Okay. And then, when they do get to watch us, I mean, it is such a satisfying feeling seeing people's mouths open, when we're performing and I'm taking clothes off and I'm, hamming it up with the audience and stuff, and they're participating, that feels so good when you have this reciprocal thing with the audience. And they were just really into it. Well received us, took really good care of us. All the bands took care of us. And then we sold a ton of merch. So the people of Kentucky, they get it, and we would love to come back. We will be back, actually, later this year for Holler of Doom in the summertime with Storm Toker and a bunch of other cool heavy bands.
Sounds like a great time that you're already planning to return. Molly, since this is the first time we've had you on the show, if you don't mind, give us a thumbnail sketch of how the band Omenbringer came about.
Well, I always speak in riddles, and so like in our band bio, it kind of says that we came about in the time of pestilence, meaning the 2020 plague. And so I was, I was at home and I had inspiration to like write some songs, and I had wanted to have a heavy metal band. And I started writing songs, and I mean, these songs were coming to me in their entirety at like 2 or 3 in the morning. I would wake up and like All of Tongues pours out of me, or All of Big Titty Goth Girlfriend, or All of Steak. Those were the first 3 Omenbringer songs. And I was just so excited. I mean, I've actually been writing songs since I was very, very young. I just thought nothing could come of it. And so I would write songs and sing in the shower and make things up and then not write them down, because I just thought, there's nothing, nothing's going to come of this. But the older you get, the less, am I allowed to curse?
Absolutely.
The older you get, the less fucks that you give about what other people think. And so you start doing stuff, hopefully, for yourself. And so Omenbringer was my vision. I was like, I want to have this stoner metal witch band, and I get all dressed up. I'm the Grand High Witch. I'm the Supreme. Everybody in the band has a personality. We are the next Kiss, like we are a unit, but everybody is different. We are excellent salespeople and heavily merchandised, like we get our fans and we give them what they want. And we want to have, we want to have fire. We want to have me flying on the broom of an audience. Like I've had this dream as I'm describing to you from the jump was what I wanted to do. And I was like, we're going to be the biggest band in the world, And so I started trying to put the band together. It took a while for it to really come together, but Corey was the first core member of the band. And I didn't realize at the time when I asked Corey to join the band how unbelievably talented he is. I mean, he can play every instrument. He can play the drums, he can play the bass, he can play the guitar, and I just not just play it, like really play it. He can play well. And he's absolutely a wizard when it comes to guitar. So he actually originally joined the band as the drummer and then decided that he was going to be the guitar player. And I think it was just a confidence thing. I think he was like, you know what? Guitar is my first instrument. I can do this. Like, I can be a great guitar player for this band. And then once that happened, we had Spooky join. And Spooky is just a wizard as well. He is a multi-instrumentalist. He also plays drums. He can do anything. And he's also our merch master. So a lot of our merchandise we get to make in-house because Spooky is talented and he can press shirts for us and screen print them, and he can make koozies with glow-in-the-dark font on them, like he is so badass. And then the rest of the band kind of fell into place. Like we had some other members, but we just needed more. We needed people that were more dedicated. And that's how Mario got into the band, who we love. And he's the sweetest, the Toki member of the band, if you like Metalocalypse. But he has the most brutal taste in music of all of us. He's always up there smiling, and I have to get on to him Mario, quit smiling so much. You're supposed to be the tough one. His title is the Executioner, and it's because of his heavy metal taste. But, yeah, he's actually hilarious because he has the meanest, most brutal metal taste of music of all of us. And right now we're playing with Julian on the drums, Julian Fleck, who is in a few bands around town. He's in Titans of Siren and in a band called The Heavy Change. And he is a wonderful drummer. And he admitted to us that double kick drum was not really in his repertoire. But he started working on our music, and he has grown phenomenally in the just 2 months that we've had him. And he'll come in having practice. You know, he rehearsed these songs, and he's getting better every time. He goes home and he works to get better. And that's the mark of a musician, an artist, you know, is somebody who pushes themselves to grow and works hard at their craft. If you just show up and play, if you don't practice, we practice every week, sometimes twice a week. You know, you don't get to be called the best band in town by being sloppy and lazy. So, you know, the reason that we have that title is because we put on such an amazing show. And it's like, I hear it all the time from people in the audience, like, this is my first time seeing y'all. It was amazing. They just can't stop. They're just word vomit talking to me and telling me how much they loved it and that they're bringing people in. So we have not spent, until this week, we have not spent a single dollar on advertisement for this band. It has all been word of mouth.
That's pretty remarkable. And I will say, I know there were a lot of bands who during that time called it quits. It really does my heart good to hear that during that time that there were a generation of ideas for new bands and the positive things that came out of that. It's always a tough question, but I'm curious what musicians and bands most influenced the style of Omenbringer. I think I can hear some similarities to other artists, but, you know, I don't know that similarities means necessarily inspiration, so I'm always surprised to hear where that inspiration comes from.
Oh, well, before I tell you, could you tell me a few of those? Because I would love to hear what you've come up with. I love hearing stuff like that.
I'm getting ready. I'm going to go to Legions of Metal in May, and so I've been listening to a lot of Castle. And so Castle's one that's like, oh, I can see some similarities there.
I'm not really familiar with them. I'm familiar with Castle Rat.
I don't know. I don't even know them.
Oh, they are cool. They are blowing up. You should check them out.
I will definitely do that.
Well, 1,000% our influences are classic metal. My favorite band is Thin Lizzy. So you will hear a lot of guitar-many stuff in our music because that is my homage to Phil Lynott, who is a genius. And I love Black Sabbath. I love Pentagram. I love that Bobby has become a little bit of a meme lately, which is super cool. I really love Pentagram. I love Iron Maiden. And so it's really, you know, in the course of history, there has never been a band that had a lady lead singer that has, like, taken over the world. Like, you know, that it's been the Beatles and the Stones and Black Sabbath, you know, and there have been really big lady soloists or divas, you know, pop singers, but there hasn't been a crazy famous, like, many decades long, many hits band with a lady lead singer, and that is us. Kiss, you know, all of these bands, these are the biggest rock bands that have ever been, you know, so it's like we want to be in that echelon, and we want to present a show. Every single show that we've ever had has been bigger and more complex and complicated than the last one. And now that we have graduated to a larger stage, such as Exit In, that allows us to do more of the theatrics and the big, you know, exciting things in our shows that we can't do on a little bitty stage with crappy lights and crappy sound. So it's like we're a band. We may be a kind of a little band, but we have huge ambitions. And I personally have huge ambition for us to go and make this enormous mark out there.
I wouldn't bet against you guys. Now, you all released Omenbringer's debut album, Thicc Darkness, back in June of last year. I think it's a great amalgam of music. You've got some doomy stuff, upbeat stuff, the occultish elements, some very tongue-in-cheek elements. What was the overall musical vision for this album? Like, what was it you were trying to get across?
Well, I'm going to answer that. Well, one of the things I forgot to mention when I was talking about my influences, and you will hear them peppered throughout Thicc Darkness and throughout our second album are taken from classical music.
Ah.
We take from classical music constantly. And the biggest source of my classical inspiration is Mussorgsky's A Night on Bald Mountain. And the elements of Bald Mountain are come through multiple times on Thicc Darkness. But our second album is going to be called A Night on Black Mountain. And it is both Thicc Darkness and A Night on Black Mountain are essentially concept albums. They have themes that run throughout them that are masterfully crafted into the songs by myself and by Corey. Just so subtly folded in that you'd have to listen many times in order to catch things. And that album, Thicc Darkness, I reached out to a producer that worked on one of my favorite albums. It's Kevin Szymanski. He worked on Queens of the Stone Age's Songs for the Deaf, which is an all-time favorite album of mine. And Kevin came down here from Wisconsin and worked with us, and he was wonderful. And I told him, I was like, I want this to be an oral experience. When you listen to this album in headphones, I want it to pan all around your head. The sonic influence of that album is Dark Side of the Moon. So when you really listen to it closely, you'll hear tinkling and the music just swirling around your head. And it's like, I wanted it to be this experience for sober people or stoners, to just like kind of get lost in the music a little bit and feel like they're almost like they're watching a movie or, it's telling a story.
I've been loving it. I'd like to talk with you about every single track on the album, but let's just highlight a few. I really love that intro track, Spells. It takes a little time to develop, building that atmosphere, but it really pays off. You have the eerie parts and then the contrast with the underlying melody. And it's just like a nice slow burn throughout. What was the thought process behind that one?
Spells is probably the first Omenbringer song, and it's probably the one that has it's literally a curse. That song has given us so many problems over the years, and I feel like we have finally tamed Spells, but it was like, Spells is always our opener song. It's such a big song, it's big, flashy. It's got bold musical elements, and themes. So it's a really good song for us to come out to and just come out swinging. And, that song has given us lots of trouble. It gave us trouble in the studio and delayed us almost an entire day, starting with Spells. And it's given us trouble on stage at the end. I remember I think it was Spooky's amp went out during that song. Just so many times it has messed with us. And at the beginning, when I was first starting this band, I was still learning how to scream properly. And it would, really tear my voice up screaming at the end of it. And then I went at the advice of one of my mentors and got some singing lessons. And my vocal coach told me and taught me how to scream properly and throw it kind of to the back of your throat. And it's like you don't have to push screaming. And so it actually, just the way that it works in your voice, it gets amplified if you do it correctly and you allow the microphone to do the work. You don't really have to do the work. And so it was like Spells used to literally just tear us apart and tear me apart. But now we have kind of tamed Spells, and it's kind of our anthem that we come out to. And it's just one of those songs that when people hear it, like if they aren't there to see us, their head turns when they hear that song and they start paying attention.
Another of my faves is Stir the Cauldron. That's just a super fun, rocker. Definitely one I can see, be pumping my fist to in the live setting. Is that one of the ones that just came to you in the middle of the night, or is that one that the band sat around together and tossed out ideas to assemble?
So Cauldron came to us really quick, and it might have actually been something that Corey came up with. I can't really remember if it was I came up with the melody. I might have. But I know that all of the lyrics are always me. And so I remember writing it, and it came immediately. Like once we had the melody, it like the whole song flowed out. And the song is based on my favorite movie, one of my favorite movies of all time, Hocus Pocus. So the lyrics are directly related to Hocus Pocus and things that come from Hocus Pocus, which is so fun because most of the sexy women that come to our shows love that movie too. And so they get excited and they're actually listening to the lyrics, trying to pick out what I'm saying. But Cauldron is by far and above my favorite song of ours to perform because it is so high energy. And I always bring out my staff. I have 3 staffs that I use on stage. The first staff is called Galadriel, the second is called Arwen, and the third is Gandalf. So as you can tell, there is a theme there. And so I learned how to spin the staff. I learned how to throw it in the air as high as I can. So it's just a huge moment when we do it live on a big stage because I throw that stick as high up in the air as I can. It's awesome. And I haven't dropped it yet.
Killer. I love that song, and again, another one I'm hoping to hear you all perform live. When you guys are performing these songs, do you guys ever improvise? I mean, sometimes you have to improvise, but or is your vision to try to keep things fairly close to the recording?
I know that, like Corey, our lead guitar player, he always plays the solos exactly like they are on the record, which is so helpful because it's a cue every time. I know exactly when he's finished, because I know the music so well. So it's actually really helpful. I think a lot of people, out of sloppiness, don't do the same solo. They kind of just wing it. And it's really helpful to your bandmates to have these really definite musical cues. And I mean, we look at each other. Sometimes some bandmates use my dance moves as cues. And then I have the drummer sometimes gives me cues that I know when to come back in. Because we practice so much, we really know this music. Rarely do we have flubs. The flubs are usually just technical issues, like a piece of gear is acting up. It's not usually somebody messed up the song so much that it goes sideways. That pretty much never happens.
Now, the album hasn't been out even a year yet, but some time has passed. And how pleased are you just as having birthed this album, and also, your thoughts about the response from fans and critics for whatever that's worth?
Well, I like that you use the term birth because that is how it felt to me. I am a child of cat lady, so they say, and I don't want to have children. This is my child. These songs are my children, and this album was my first child. And I was in tears the day that the records showed up to my house. Like, what a dream as a music fan to hold your own record in your hands for the first time. And I put my heart and soul into that record. Those records are so fancy. They are in poly sleeves. They are multiple colors. They have a gatefold. All of that was by direct design from myself. Everything about that packaging was picked and chosen and designed by me. And I wanted to give the fans the ultimate copy of our first baby that they could get. So they're hand numbered, hand signed by the whole band. They come with a unique, sexy Polaroid of me inside, which is crazy. 200 some odd little pictures that were taken of me, so it's just, they're so intimate and unique by design and on purpose. And so the reception of the record was so positive. I mean, especially from the fans. I had pretty much no negative reviews. I had one review that I saw that was like, it was like clearly written by like an old boomer man. And it was like such a like misogynist take on our record and like kind of blowing us off for being sexy, which is so silly. So like, it's like women kind of get like that. They get that immediately. That wall comes up with people and they kind of think, oh, well, she just looks good, and it's like, it's not a bait and switch with us. I mean, we are all so musically talented, and I'm just so proud of that album. All the percussion on that album, I played it myself. So all the little tinkly stuff, it's just like peppered with love and just longing to create something magical. And so I am extremely proud of it. All of us are. And, we can't wait to make our second album. We're in the process of it right now, and we will have a big announcement about it at the show.
You're anticipating my next question, which is beginning to wrap up with you. What are the band's plans following this upcoming performance at Exit In?
Well, we are not going to be playing locally again for anywhere from 5 to 7 months. We will either play one show in the summer locally and then one show at Halloween, or just the Halloween show. But we plan to release our second album on Halloween, which is a Friday, which everybody knows that it's good to release music on a Friday. And it will be called A Night on Black Mountain. It is a concept album that loosely tells the story of us laying siege to an evil witch's castle, being taken prisoner, tortured in the dungeon, chased by a dragon, and narrowly escaping through a trapdoor. So if that doesn't sound fucking epic to you nerds, then I don't know what to tell you, because I think that's fucking crazy. It sounds awesome.
It's awesome to me. And you say that you're planning on having a release show for that?
Oh, yes.
Awesome.
Very big show. And we have the venue tentatively pinned down. We have half of the lineup pinned down. We're just kind of working on, all of it has been a new experience of learning for me, because I don't know anything about the music industry, really. I only know about public performance rights and music licensing, and how songwriters and publishers are protected through public performance rights. But I didn't really know anything else. And so one of the big things that is important to any small band is making relationships out of town so that you can bring people like the Dead Feathers from Chicago to your show at Exit In, and therefore they will bring you up to play with them, and they have a good crowd, and they will, return the favor.
Yes.
So we're making those relationships with bands so that we can come play with them. And obviously if they come to town and play with us, we are going to take good care of them, and they are going to have an excellent crowd, because our crowd is just the best in the world, so supportive and cool. So I know it's a lot to kind of work on, but we have a manager. Our manager's name is Derek Jones, and he is working very hard to try to help us with those relationships and setting up some of these out-of-town shows like the one in Kentucky. And so we are so grateful to other bands that reach out to us and offer to have us come play with them, because that's what we would like to do. So you know who to contact. If you're a big old band out of Louisiana or anywhere in the Southeast especially, please hit me up so we can make a relationship.
Well, it sounds like you guys have the passion, and I'm confident given that everything else is just going to work out. So finally, Molly, what is the best way for fans to purchase music and merchandise from Omenbringer, including your debut album, Thicc Darkness?
Well, Thicc Darkness is available on our Bandcamp. We appreciate anyone who buys it on Bandcamp Friday, because then we do not incur fees from Bandcamp. And we also sell our records locally in Nashville at several fine record stores, including Dead End Records, Grimey's, The Groove. We have some at Hale Dark Aesthetics, and both of the Great Escapes. And as far as our merch is the horniest, coolest, sexiest merch you have ever seen. And you have to come to an Omenbringer show to get your hands on it at this time. But we have glow-in-the-dark posters, glow-in-the-dark shirts and koozies, patches, sexy viewfinders with tiny naughty pictures of me inside. We have the craziest merch. Cum towels. Oh, I forgot about the cum towels. So we have, just about the coolest, best merch that you have ever seen, which is why that we always do so well with our merchandise, because people I'm a salesperson. I want to make something, a product that people look at and they go, I can't walk away from that. I have to have that.
Well, I'm so looking forward to seeing you guys at that show at Exit In, and I'll definitely be at the merch booth to pick up some merchandise. Molly, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I'm again so looking forward to the show.
You are so welcome, Robert, and we will see you there. Be sure to come and find me. I won't be out prior to the performance, but after the performance, I will be out amongst the audience and the fans, ready to hug and kiss and love on everybody.